she's like, this is so exciting. Like, how did they know?
You'll never convince me that Alexa's not listening to us. The type of buildings that I ran at Amazon, we had 13,000 robots on site.
How do the robots and the automation shift the jobs that humans do inside a facility?
It's unlikely that AI is going to replace you as much as the person who embraces AI is going to replace you.
Brent Hagan, the Chief of Supply Chain at Lob. Good morning, Brent.
Calling all CPG shippers, truckers, and logistics pros. Welcome to the Truck Yeah Podcast, your ultimate cheat code for smarter shipping, smoother logistics, and dominating the shelf where it matters most. Buckle up. It's time to learn, laugh, and get your freight on.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Zipline Logistics Podcast. My name is Jesse Jewett. Joined with me, as always, Teddy Lee Knox. Hello, Teddy.
Hello, how are you?
Wonderful. We got a special guest today. We are talking about leveraging robotics and AI to optimize supply chains. Who better to talk about that than our special guest, Brent Hagan, the Chief of Supply Chain at Lob. Good morning, Brent.
Hi, thanks for having me today. Good morning.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you. It's warming up here in Columbus, Ohio after a few months, feels like weeks of cold, frigid temperatures. But
it's only going to get colder before it gets
all
warm.
right.
All right. So let's not say it's warm all of a sudden.
We're moving forward. We're moving forward. But we're excited to talk to Brent. First up, Brent, we're going to kind of just review your history, your work history. We always like to do that to kind of give us a baseline. So I'm going to allow you to talk about the highlights of your past work history. So go right ahead.
Yeah, so I'm a graduate of Purdue University, Boiler Up. But coming out of there, I was in an executive development program with a tier one manufacturing company that's called Eaton. I spent 3 years traveling around the country, learning essentially the goal of the program is to teach engineers how to be like actual like human beings and interact with people and not systems.
Nice.
It's important.
Yeah. My wife would argue maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. Coming out of that program, I got into private equity manufacturing, where I began working heavily in Lean Six Sigma. And my specialty became operations due diligence and post-acquisition operations integration and merging first and third party supply chains globally. That was a whole lot of fun until we had our first daughter, and I was spending more time in China and Mexico than I was with her, and made a pivot to Amazon, where I spent 4 years building their robotic fulfillment network and 4 different distribution centers there. Each one was capable of doing about a million outbound orders a day. When you think about that sheer scale is very, very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, moved into a startup that was founded by an ex-Amazonian, where we thought that we could create Amazon-like fulfillment speeds without Amazon-like fulfillment or fixed cost and infrastructure, by leveraging AI machine learning to accurately predict the most likely point in which inventory was to be sold. And we created regionally placed distribution and logistics networks tied to that. And we would place that inventory in those geographic areas. So we had very short final mile delivery. The ideal worked about 5 years after the start of the company. We were acquired by Shopify for $2.2 billion. So that was a ton of fun. The afterlife of that acquisition, not so much fun. And I took some time off to re-energize before I joined Lob, where I'm the chief supply chain officer here. General premise is that we are a direct mail automation platform, and we believe ourselves to be an end-to-end orchestration engine for all things in the direct mail space. So for customers that need their billing statements done, or postcards, marketing campaigns, like whatever W-2s, like whatever those things might be, we have one of the easiest platforms globally to be able to ingest that work. And we have built a third party manufacturing network and logistics network that takes that excess capacity that our providers have, and it becomes our capacity to be able to process that work and intelligently route it downstream, so that we can have cost and speed kind of meet, right? Depending on what sort of campaign somebody has and how quickly they need it in home, we can customize those solutions to be able to meet their needs. So that has been a lot of fun. I've been here almost 3 years now. Our world has definitely changed over those 3 years
I
and what
bet.
we prioritize.
That's wild. We're going to talk about Lob here a little bit later. My mind is racing with questions, but first up, the first topic we've got is robotics and automation. One of the things that I've heard, certainly with the AI boom of maybe the back half of 2025, or you probably think it's longer, but robotics and AI often get framed as quote unquote labor replacement. Talk about that in your experience. How do the robots and the automation shift the jobs that humans do inside a facility?
What's up, truckers? Zipline Logistics is heading back to Natural Products Expo West once again this year. We'll be there in Anaheim March 3rd through 6th, and we are really hoping to see you there. Since Zipline exclusively serves CPG shippers, showing up for the CPG community is kind of our thing. And that's why in 2026, we are proud to be the only platinum level logistics sponsor of the event. Still need your Expo Pass? Use our discount code 10953 for 10% off, or just click the link in the show notes below. Let's link up at Expo West. We are so excited to see you there.
Yeah, that's definitely the way that I think about it. It's not always a labor replacement.
Right.
Like that's not always the goal, especially when you start looking at, white collar versus blue collar. People always talk about the AI revolution in particular, and the thing that I talk about is it's unlikely that AI, for example, is going to replace you as much as the person who embraces AI is going to replace you. And so when I think about it going all the way down to the shop floor, for example, and what maybe it's AMRs can do for you or what just general robotics can do for you, it begins to take highly redundant work and it begins to shift that into highly automated work. And the largest variable inside of any warehouse is the human itself. It's also one of the most intelligent pieces on the floor. So how
Mhm.
do we begin to allow humans to make highly technical decisions, whether that be focused on quality or other value added things that we can add to a system? And that's the shift that I think that large organizations like an Amazon, for example, have already made and continue to make versus maybe your traditional shop floors where the cost of those sort of solutions hasn't gotten to a point where it can truly scale.
That is so important when you're looking at an entire supply chain as well. Sometimes you're just thinking about the facility basis, but that automation, I like to think of it more as like enhancements, and it needs to be throughout the supply chain, not just in a facility. But I think that's really important to your point. It's not a labor replacement. How can we use this to get the humans to think more critically, do things a little bit differently, customization, like you mentioned, and what you're able to do in your day to day? I think that's really important. It's a really nice distinction rather than people just saying, oh, it's labor replacement. Jobs are being replaced by AI.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's certainly going to be some roles that just disappear. When you look
Mhm.
at general material handling, if you look at what's traditionally called a water spider environment inside of a manufacturing operation, like yes, those sort of things are going to go away. They're highly redundant. They're also very high turnover roles. Right, like
Right.
you don't see a 25-year water spider veteran inside of a manufacturing setting, right? That's usually a gateway into those roles. And so now we get to have them take on more responsibility earlier and begin to learn the operation and train them to do more value added offerings. Like it's a really good solution for everyone.
I saw a video, I believe, the other day about like a robotic forklift or an automated forklift. You got any other cool robot stories of out on the warehouse floor for us? Any other unique arms or things like that?
Oh, absolutely. So the type of buildings that I ran at Amazon, we had 13,000 robots on site and usually 3 to 5,000 people as well. And it was one of the pieces that I had made note to kind of talk to y'all about today. And I mentioned it briefly just now, but the autonomous mobile robots it's something that Amazon's been using for a long time. It's pretty cost prohibitive. Like there are certainly other companies that use it, GXO, but is also a massive fulfillment provider that can afford to do those sort of things. But you're talking about robots that really kind of make their own decisions in terms of the lanes that they're going to use to deliver goods to an operator to pick from, as well as if they see an obstruction, rerouting themselves to be able to still get to the operator, although less efficient routes, but they're going to make those decisions on their own.
Hmm.
That's something that I think your traditional mom and pop fulfillment company just can't get there yet, but soon they're going to be able to. And it's pretty impressive to watch. Like you've got something that's the size of what I would call like a really large like Roomba vacuum
Yeah.
that's lifting up 2,000 pounds
Right.
on this 10-foot tall stack of inventory, moving it from place to place. That sort of thing is pretty neat to watch.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I've seen some, it's not the same vein, but similar with the automatic driving or driverless cars, right? Then kind of them learning the navigating the roadways or like I saw one with a fence the other day. It's wild. It's very interesting. So kind of piggybacking off of that, AI and supply chain. So it's in the similar vein, a little bit different, but tell us about practical ways AI is improving maybe the data side of things, forecasting, routing, or demand planning. What do you see that in your experience that's actually working out there right now?
Yeah, we're using it right now. In fact, we just launched a new product that we call Postal IQ, which is the pre-sort software tied to everything that we do. So it's building all of our logic for demand placement versus capacity, as well as looking at postal regulations, as well as both trailer and postal efficiencies and making the best decision possible for where mail should be both produced and routed. Within the USPS system itself, there's something that's called an SEF, and there's like 225 or something of these SEFs around the United States. And your ability to get the mail to that SCF instead of allowing the USPS to do it for you comes with tremendous unit economics savings.
Hmm.
And so we begin to batch orders across unique customers, which is something pretty special to Lob. Most traditional printers are going to batch work customer by customer, campaign by campaign, not necessarily blend all of that work together. And so our use of AI has allowed us to begin to do that. And so your traditional customer that could send a million pieces of mail downstream at one time versus your customer who's sending 10,000 pieces, we're now able to get the efficiencies to that customer of 10,000 that has been, kind of exclusive to the 1 million customer. And that's been a tremendous opportunity for us to scale an industry that, as we all know, has been reducing over time, but really built on the back of us being a large technology player in an industry that has been around for a very, very long time.
Snail mail's coming back.
Yeah, it is back. Yeah, it's back, baby.
I think that,
The
there
piece
is something to be said about holding something,
It's
right?
very exciting.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
still feel like I
My kids
send a
love it.
lot of it.
Yeah.
Oh, the piece that we talk about, this isn't the mailbox that, and trust me, like I know I'm talking about direct mail here, but this isn't the mailbox that you and I grew up with.
Right.
Where our parents were coming back with a stack of things to throw in the trash or now hopefully the recycling bin.
Right.
But there's studies out there that say that Gen Zs actually love getting mail because they never really historically got it, and when they do get it now, it's personalized to them
Hmm.
versus they've been getting emails their entire life and their inbox is completely overrun. So, actually, when you begin to look at direct mail as a marketing channel, it actually has the highest attribution of any traditional marketing channel out there. And some of that is because of the things that like Lob prioritizes with our customer base is how do you we don't need to do like this spray and pray campaign of make sure that every neighbor inside of your neighborhood gets the same campaign. How do we ensure that the right people in that neighborhood get a campaign that's customized to them, that has a compelling call to action and allows them to do something? And tying this back to supply chain, a lot of that comes down to who are you targeting, why are you targeting them, and how quickly do you need to target them to get them to do something. And so we have to have a very agile supply chain that enables our customers to be able to do that.
That's really funny because we had something in the mail the other day about our windows. And my oldest daughter was really excited because she's like, "You were just complaining about the windows, Mom." She's like, "This is so exciting. Like, how did they know?" And
They're
it's
listening
just,
to you.
yeah, it's just really interesting to hear like how like they're now starting to notice these things
Yeah.
and be like, "Oh, you needed this. Here's your answer." Like,
Yeah.
problem solved.
Right. Yeah. You just got this
Yeah.
flyer in the
Yeah,
mail.
exactly.
Yeah,
Call them up.
Well,
they
some
also
of
just
it,
figured out that I'm ordering the Amazon packages that come. They also thought that was
Yeah.
just happening. Like they didn't,
well,
all of it's new.
and sometimes it does, and some of it's almost creepy. Like you'll never convince me that Alexa's not listening to us. You'll never convince me that that's not happening.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're doing research on window washing or house cleanings or that sort of thing, Facebook is going to pick that up, right?
Right.
Facebook
Hmm.
is going to retarget that. Like people are buying that data, and we're going to help them get you more information on how you can complete those services. Or if you leave something in your cart at a shop that you frequently visit, how can we compel you to go and close out that order or that sort of thing?
Hit that checkout button.
Hmm.
That's
Yep,
interesting.
exactly.
You touched on it briefly, but something near and dear to our house, our heart, the good old fashioned truck. Right? How does that play, roles within the lob ecosystem? You mentioned kind of empty mile, or I guess backhauls or empty miles and filling those up. What else are we
Yeah.
missing there?
Yeah, there's a few different things within the direct mail space itself. It's not as simple as just getting stuff out of a print manufacturer and handing it to the USPS. Like you could do those things. It
Right.
would be fairly cost prohibitive, and it happens a lot, but you're going to pay in terms of postage a lot compared to what you need to pay if you have a robust logistics network that's tied to it. So one of the pieces that we look at is middle mile sortation, which in this space is called commingling. And how do you do exactly what it sounds like? Commingle customers together that inherently don't have anything to do with each other outside of the fact that they're going to the same destination. The question that becomes there is how do you have that mail get there?
Hmm.
And so are you going to move things LTL versus FTL? On what basis are you going to be able to do that? What are the unit economics that are tied to it? So now you get into a trailer utilization conversation. When you have enough density within a lane, can we do FTL drop ship directly to the USPS instead? Like that's going to be the most economically favorable thing. And then, most importantly to our customers, what's the timing and the cost of each one of those decisions? And so that really begins to piggyback of, gosh, like, could you imagine if you had to have humans make those decisions every time? Like, we do, 500 million pieces of mail a year. Like it's not just a human that would have to make that decision. It's teams of humans. And it's highly transactional.
Yeah.
Today's work is not tomorrow's work. So can AI begin to take over those sort of things? And what we begin to see as you do that is, okay, we've got fewer dwell hours. We've got more predictable dispatch windows. We can schedule tighter line hauls, which are going to drive, those things alone are going to drive 10 to 15% network cost improvements. Now you're saying, okay, I've got fewer trailers per week, a lower cost per unit shipped, a more stable line haul demand profile. Like all of those things come as a result of AI and better predictive modeling.
That's super interesting. This sounds like a very simple question as we dive into AI and robotics, but how is mail loaded onto a 53-foot truck trailer? Is it in bales?
It's in a tray. You've probably seen the tray. They look like
The white plastic like buckets kind of?
That's right. Yeah, it looks like corrugate, but it's actually like a plastic.
Right.
And the one thing that I will say, so the USPS, is going to do like 90 to 100 billion pieces of mail this year,
Yeah.
which is a lot.
Yeah.
If you were to go over to the UK, they'll do 9 billion. So just give you like an idea of
Yeah.
scale there. When you go to the UK, their equivalent of the white buckets are actually like beautiful. Like
Yeah.
to the point of if you watch college football today versus if you watched it in the early 90s, you'd always see like the offensive linemen with like a paint chips in their helmets,
Yeah.
from their heads getting slammed versus today, like every helmet, is perfect 100% of the time. Like that's kind of the comparison of like a tote in the US
I
versus
hear
it's called a
you.
tray versus a tray in the UK. But yeah, so they get loaded into trays. Those trays are palletized, and then depending on scale, maybe they're stacked in the line haul, maybe they're not. Then they're probably not. Like they can get crushed
Right.
fairly easily if not stacked well, but they could be stacked.
Okay. I had a similar discussion, or not similar, but a discussion with a potential customer of ours that has smaller products, right? And you mentioned the drop trailers and the timing and the AI component of that. And it was interesting to hear, right? You have to try and match up all of those factors, right? Because people need to get their mail, or your customers want the mail, within a certain time frame, right? You can't just wait until you have a full truck. If it takes 3 weeks, that's not an effective use of anybody's time. Similar to this retailer that we were talking about, a potential customer of ours was like, yeah, eventually, even if the truck's 60% full, 70% full as we're loading it, we do have deadlines that we have to meet. If it's a 2-day transit, it's got to go. And it's interesting to think that, you know, in my experience, I've been in supply chain for 18 years. There are human interactions where it's just like, yep, got to send it. We got to get we got to get that product there. I worked in the furniture delivery
100%.
section, right? It's got to be there by Friday to hit the home delivery section. We've already have it scheduled, so it just has to go. And to think that AI can maybe predict that or utilize some sort of data that says, all right, for these whatever time frame, as soon as it hits to 25% full, we know based on all of the data that we've calculated that takes 12 hours to then get to 70% full, and we're willing to move it at that point. So we'll send out a notification to the driver or the team or who's going to handle it. I mean, it is interesting to think that you can keep peeling back these layers or keep implementing points in the data to trigger something that will help drive the cost efficiencies.
I agree. I totally agree, and that's the way. That's our thesis in the space as well. And so within the last 18 months, actually, Lob began creating a more autonomous logistics network where the way in which I wanted to look at it, given the tenure of this industry, you see fewer and fewer players entering into the space, right? Which can create a lack of competitiveness. And within logistics itself, tied to direct mail, there's really like one Goliath that has truly national presence. And everyone else, even if they say that they're national, they're really not, right? If you split the country into like quadrants or maybe across like 5 regions, the next largest player might really be in like three.
Yeah.
And so that can become a real challenge, especially to your small and medium sized print manufacturer, but even to a law, right? Because of that lack of competitiveness on a national level, immediately going to get steered towards the Goliath. And so that was something that kind of irritated me to to be really honest when I
Yeah.
got into this space, because there's a lack of, you can't negotiate, with
Right.
yourself.
Yeah.
And so what I began to ask my team is, hey, can we take the patents that we have on the manufacturing side, which the patents that we have is the intelligent routing that begins to connect print manufacturers across our network that are all third party but have nothing to do with each other. And we can dynamically route that our demand to that network as if it was one large company. So can we take that technology and put that in logistics where we have a lot of freight providers, a number of middle mile sortation providers together, and then we allow that technology to decide which one we're going to use based on whatever criteria that we set, which is really a new look for the space. But it allowed us to begin to multi-source our partner network, where traditionally everyone in the industry is singularly sourced, and it worked. It worked incredibly well. And so after we did that, it was even while we were building it, it was like, gosh, like this is probably something the rest of the industry is going to be super interested in. So we actually launched a new business called Lob Logistics that sells those services. So print manufacturers or even those who need print services can tap into our API. Our API will dynamically route to the best possible logistics offering that this customer is going to need at the best price, and begin to dynamically route that through the middle mile supply chain. And it has been really fun to be a part of that endeavor. So on top of my chief supply chain officer responsibilities, I'm also VPGM of that business line,
Hmm.
managing a small sales team for the first time, which has been really great. But it's something that we've had a lot of success with in 2025, and that we're excited about in 2026.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
You both mentioned data capabilities, regions, size, things like that. And after like talking about this, it just makes me think like I feel like there's a specific milestone or phase that everyone goes into where that's when they officially start needing AI, where they start thinking more about robots and like what that's needed. And I know that you'd mentioned earlier that mom and pop shops. I feel like
Mhm.
we have a lot of CPG customers that they need to start with those mom and pop shops because they don't have the data. They don't have, what they need to start confirming what capabilities and AI or, automation that they might need going forward. So like what are some key things that people should start looking for to get to that point? Because even though, food and beverage is a little bit different than, paper mail, ultimately it's the same thing. You get to a point where you're no longer thinking regionally, you're thinking nationally. And I've seen a lot of customers get into positions where they are, I guess, going forward with, I guess, what's consolidators or something like that. And then they
Mhm.
don't capture their data and then they can't capitalize on using AI correctly. And that gets them in a difficult spot. So I guess this is a question to both of you. What are some things that people can start looking into to make sure that they are preparing themselves to use AI in their supply chain correctly?
You can really begin to start with basic premise of how do you make your team more efficient. I think becomes the first use case for AI. That goes back to forecasting and labor scheduling. Most of these companies, they're gonna have some sort of base level MRP, ERP. What sort of additions can you add to that that's going to be able to help you better forecast and plan? When you start getting into what's happening on the shop floor, how can you ingest that sort of data around inventory counts? If you're talking about CPG, your overall pick rates, your lead time to order, even if you start with like output data that you're going to track, right? Like the number of days that it takes from order ingestion to the time it's given to your customer. Like people are going to have that, or you give it to the consolidator, to your point, like you're going to have that data and say, what can I do to start streamlining these processes? So it really depends on what do I want to shift first. Do I want to look at my cogs and shift my cost down, right? Like, okay,
Mhm.
great. Like, what are simple tools that I can embed within my warehouse that are going to optimize those things? Or is it an external facing sort of thing that I want to begin to solve? Which would really change what tools that I'm going to leverage to drive that.
That's interesting. Yeah. Capturing any sort of data is probably better than not capturing any at all. And so that's what one element of our system, Canopy, does. So we have an in-house tech platform, Brent, that's both internal and customer facing, and it captures skid counts, case counts if we've got that from our customers, rate per mile, on-time delivery percentages, all across anything that involved in our customer supply chain that you can think of, it can capture. And that's a great kind of starting point to then, again, like you talked about, peel back the layers to try and find efficiencies within the network. That's been a super beneficial to our customer partners over the last 5 to 7 years as we continue to build it out. I mean, it's got a lot of the, basic day-to-day efficiencies, tracking and tracing, things of that nature. But the data analytics piece is where we find the most impact. So that's been exciting. But capturing the data for me, I know that seems simple, but sometimes, the simple solutions are the most effective.
I agree. And I think that goes
100%.
back to
Yeah, totally agree.
demographics. Like,
Yeah.
what are you thinking about that, window replacement is maybe better in Dublin, Ohio than it
Right.
is in another area versus this product sells better at Costco and West Coast than it does in East Coast. I feel like all that data is extremely important to understand
Sure.
for your entire network.
All right, Brent, we're going to have you predict the future. Place a bet here. What robotics or AI capability will be completely standard in warehouses, or maybe not? What's new and exciting in the next 5 years? Got anything on the tip of your tongue or on the top of your mind?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I had mentioned the AI and dynamic forecasting and scheduling tool. Like I think that's going to become pretty standard here in the future, just in the same way that any warehouse you see right now, no matter if size, is going to at least be using Excel or Google Sheets or something like that to plan. They're gonna begin to embed AI components into their decision making to drive more efficiency. Additionally, I had referenced the AMRs, the autonomous mobile robots.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to continue to see those things begin to scale, both in terms of the technology is inherently going to become cheaper, but as well as inflationary crunches and the cost of our workforce as those things continue to grow. The the economics and ROI tied to it are just going to make sense to start substituting some of the highly standard work with those sort of robotics.
Very cool. Well, that wraps it up. What's the best way for folks to get a hold of you, Brent? Can you give yourself plug yourself, and then how can they get in touch?
Yeah, Brent Hagan, Hagan. You can find me on LinkedIn at Lob. That's definitely the best way to get a hold of me. Let's connect, and happy to have any conversations that anyone wants.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our listeners. If you don't mind, leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Brent, thank you so much for the time today. We look forward to talking to you soon.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks.
But yeah, thanks for joining us on another episode of the podcast. We'll talk to you soon.